sometimes people are over deducted, so you overpay the income tax on your payroll. So what happens when you file your taxes is that the government will see, okay, they made this much, but they also paid this much. This is like an overpayment, so we're going to issue a refund. So that's where your refund comes in from, right? So
I tried it once. I tried TurboTax a few years ago, and it was a nightmare. I did it. It was complex, a lot of questions, a lot of boxes that you have to fill out. And at the end of the day, I received a letter a few weeks after I filed, and they were asking me for more paperwork. I'm like, why?
Yeah. And just do tax planning. Once you finish your filing, sit with your accountant and plan for tax filing. And this is a really good service that we offer too, where what we do is basically we just defer your tax payments. Like instead of paying everything right now, how do we plan this to, not be a big hit right now? How do we schedule it out in a way that's better for your finances?
Hi everyone, welcome back to Financial GPS. I'm here with my co-host, my husband, David, and today we're going to talk about taxes, we're going to talk about accountability, we're going to talk about many things that have to do with your money. So if you're interested on this topic, stay tuned with us. For that, we have a very dear friend of ours here with us as our guest. She is currently working as an assistant accountant, and she's right here with us. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much, David, Dani, for having me. I'm so honored to be part of your podcast, and I really love what you're trying to accomplish with this. So it's really exciting to be able to share what I know here with you guys and everybody watching.
Thank you for being here with us, Jessie. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Vanguard Financial. It is owned by my friend Mohammed Shabir, who has been doing this for more than 10 years. And I always say he is very knowledgeable. I always say he knows how to get people out of the most complicated tax cases. Has been doing this for a long time, and it just happened that a couple years ago I started to study accounting, and when we reconnected, I was mentioning to him that I was studying accounting, and he offered me a position in his company. So I work with him, and I've been able to learn a lot from him. And some of the things that right now I'm focusing on is assisting him in the accounting aspect. I'm also specializing in payroll, and I'm also doing bookkeeping for the small companies that we have under us. But his services the Vanguard services go beyond that. Like we do business registration. So we basically take the process from the beginning till the end. Okay. Registering your company properly is a good thing that you could do with us. We also do your bookkeeping. We do payroll for small companies, small businesses. We also do personal taxes, and we also do corporation taxes. And then once we complete your taxes, we also sit down with the clients who choose this option to do financial planning and tax planning for future services.
Oh, how nice. That's a lot of services there.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because one of the advice that I give to my clients and everybody that I know is that you need to know 4 people: a good lawyer, a good accountant, a good mortgage or lender, and a good real estate advisor. And if you have those 4 working for you, then you'll be okay when it comes to your finances. I have a question for you, Jessica. Why is it important to report your taxes annually?
That's a great question, David. I think people are not aware of all the implications that not filing your taxes can have. So for starters, it is a legal obligation. Once you become a resident, and if you're 18 years of age, you are required by law to report your taxes. It also is a great way to access the benefits and credits that the government has. the only way that you can actually get these credits and benefits is if you file your taxes, right? So for example, if there's a family who hasn't filed certain years of taxes, they're missing out on the child tax benefit, right? Because the only way that the government can calculate how much you can receive is by looking at your taxes, right? So that's one way. And then the other important thing about it is refunds.
Okay.
It's people's favorite thing.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't understand is like you receive this pay stub, right, from your company, and that pay stub has deductions, right? Sometimes the employer over deducts, right? This is based though on the payroll calculations that we have. Sometimes people are over deducted, so you overpay the income tax on your payroll. So what happens when you file your taxes is that the government will see, okay, they made this much, but they also paid this much. This is like an overpayment, so we're going to issue a refund. So that's where your refund comes in from, right? So by not filing your taxes, you're missing out on a refund for some people. It's also important that you file your taxes on time, like the timeliness of it matters, because they will charge interest and penalties from the period you haven't charged. And some of their penalties and interests are daily. They're charged daily. So you want to stay on top of filing on time and every year, right? Yeah. Another thing that is important with filing your taxes is that it's necessary for certain loans. And I'm sure, being in mortgage, you guys are aware of this. There are certain loans that require your notice of assessment, which is basically your summary of your taxes that the government provides. Right. So, certain car loans, obviously mortgages, and certain big loans require this. So this is very important. And I think lastly, as a citizen, I think it's a way of contributing to society by paying your taxes, right? We all know that our taxes fund a lot of things, including healthcare, hospitals, schools, the parks that our children play in. Yeah. So it's just also a responsibility as a contribution of society as citizens as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people are like scared. Taxes, they say taxes, and the people's like, oh no, they think it's like the worst. But what you're saying is really important for people to know that some people don't know actually that these taxes are going to all these things, right? Yeah. Like public schools, parks, and sometimes you hear people complaining so much and they're not actually doing their part, right? Yeah. They think they can get away with not doing their taxes.
And healthcare is not free, so that's one of the main reasons that we pay that, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know I've seen it with people that we work with that receive subsidies, people that are struggling because physical or health impairments that don't allow them to go to work. They're receiving assistance, they're receiving subsidies, they're receiving a lot of help from the government. And all of this, like we fund, right? And you wouldn't want a family member who's going through something like this to have to struggle, right? So there's good programs in place, but this all is funded by taxpayer money, so.
Yeah, so it's important for people to have that awareness. Yeah. What are some of the options, like when it comes to filing your taxes, like to file your taxes?
Great question, because I don't think people are too aware of the different ways that they can go about this. Mm-hmm. However, I do have a biased opinion. But there are complex cases, and then there are not so complex cases. And then there are people who are willing to do it themselves, and there are people who would rather ask a professional. I think if you have a very straightforward employment income, T4, and that's all you have, I think you're okay. And if you're comfortable, you can use the net file system, which is TurboTax, UFile, Simple Tax. You can use them. But again, it's only if you feel like you want to be comfortable and you need to save some money. T4, just somebody with a T4 employment income is enough. You can do that. Some students also can choose to do it themselves. They're very straightforward returns. But then there are some returns that I would really, really, really recommend that we seek professional help with, and then accountants can do the filing for you. And these cases are, self-employed contractors, business owners, like all of that. Also, even people who just have a T4 but like are not willing or a little bit hesitant, not sure. That's perfectly understandable, because while you may save some money on paying an accountant, you actually have a higher probability of being audited.
Yeah.
So the CRA usually sees these returns that people file themselves, and they usually kind of like think there's more of a chance that this person made a mistake. So they do audit the people who choose to file themselves. So going with an accountant or a tax professional is a better way to do it, as they are more aware of regulations, and they can also tell you what expenses you can or can't claim, right? So for example, somebody who has their full-time job but then maybe does Uber on the side, right? Uber is not as straightforward as you think. There's a lot. That's a business on its own, basically.
Yes,
And exactly. And so your accountant can tell you what kind of expenses you can claim related to that and what you can't claim, right? So cases like that, I think for most people it is important to go with an accountant. But if you have a very straightforward T4 and you're willing to do and you want to save money, you can use some of the softwares to do it too.
I tried it once. I tried TurboTax a few years ago, and it was a nightmare. I did it. It was complex, a lot of questions, a lot of boxes that you have to fill out. And at the end of the day, I received a letter a few weeks after I filed, and they were asking me for more paperwork. I'm like, why? Yeah. So since then, I stopped using my own knowledge when it comes to taxes, and now,
you wanted to save money, but at the end, you're like paying more because you're wasting your time. You don't know what you're doing, right? So sometimes I think
you have to hire an accountant to come and clean this up, which we get, and that's totally fine. But if we do it right from the beginning, we can just avoid all of that.
The stress, you have unnecessary stress,
And there's a lot of information out there, right? Like a lot of things people need to know when it comes to filing your taxes. So, to be honest, I don't have the time to learn the whole book, the tax code.
I always tell Mohammed, I'm like, you're like a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because he knows the inside of the regulations in and out. Like, we can do this, but then we can't do that. But if we file this, you have to have, and it's for a lot of things, right? Like purchasing outside, purchasing here, the type of job you have, what you can or can't claim, like, things like that. For every field is different what you can or can't claim, right? What truckers claim is not what somebody who has just a company car registered under the corporation can claim versus an Uber driver can. Like, there are different claims for everybody, right? So you have to understand all these things. And so I always tell him, like, you're like a lawyer.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, and people sometimes they do what they think that, oh, my friend did that and I can do it, and sometimes people are not filing their taxes the right way.
Exactly.
So
yeah. For the past few years, I've been using Jessica and Mohammed, and I'm happy. Like I see the difference, especially because I get to know what they're doing, and it makes me feel more comfortable when I'm filing my taxes, right? Sometimes it's annoying when you receive a charge, right, and you don't know what you're paying for. So I think for me, it's really important to understand what my accounting is doing and what I'm paying for, and that's peace of mind.
Yes, for sure.
What are some of the recommendations that you can give us when it comes to filing taxes?
Yeah, so I would say the most important recommendation would be keep receipts. I think that's like the most important thing for starters. Keep receipts and make notes of any changes, any company expenses or things like that. Make notes of it so that you can later present it to your accountant or present it in the case of an audit. At least in Vanguard, we always work assuming we're going to be audited for personal, we know every change, we know everything. We ask for receipts for absolutely everything. We ask the client to keep the receipts. We just always work assuming there might be an audit, because it helps you stay organized, and it just prevents down the road, if you do have an audit, that you're more organized. You can answer it faster. We can get it done quicker. So that's one of the things. For example, I'm going to give an example. Like if your car is registered under a corporation, you need to present a very detailed mileage log. right? So, and we've seen a lot of these cases come up lately. Some people who have their car under corporation have been audited. And so they come and say, well, what do they want? Well, they want to see your very detailed diary almost of your mileage, right? So it's not just like, what's your odometer reading at the beginning and end of the year? It's like, what's your odometer reading on Monday, February 12th when you got in till the end of the day, right? So like keeping maybe a small book inside of your car where you just write how many miles you traveled daily, like just things like that, right, are very important in being organized and filing your taxes in case they come back.
Okay.
Like I said, we always assume that we're going to get audited, so we try to just keep everything as organized. And CRA provides a lot of information about keeping receipts, especially if it's a small business, on what kind of things they like, how they want you to see like how they want to see things. If they audit you, they want to see very particular things. So the CRA website has a lot of information. I would really encourage people who have certain businesses to go and look at them and see what is required of them, because we're seeing a lot of audits right now come back, and they're looking for specific things.
So
yeah.
and all those tips you can give to your clients, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. I mean, this season it's been more like, okay, we need to kind of generate something because the person's coming audited, so now we have to get them to break it down. But yes, when we initially bring in a new client, we try to provide them with this information, like, hey, just so you know, just so you are aware, these are the regulations for your type of business. We look at what they own under the corporation and we assess them, whether it's property, car, any assets, we assess them and we tell them what is required, how to depreciate, how you can, what expenses we claim. So that is very important. I think one more thing that is important about filing your taxes that I want to mention is taking advantage of your RRSPs, especially if you're making over $200K a year. It's a great way to reduce your taxable income and invest in you're investing in your future. But I really do tell people that are over 200K to consider they're putting some money in their RSPs. They're going to pay less taxes at that moment. So that's another great thing. I tell people also pay on time, file on time, and pay on time is an important one. And just do tax planning. Once you finish your filing, sit with your accountant and plan for tax filing. And this is a really good service that we offer too, where what we do is basically we just defer your tax payments, like instead of paying everything right now, how do we plan this to, not be a big hit right now? How do we schedule it out in a way that's better for your finances?
Oh, that's good.
Especially for self-employees, I guess.
Yes,
Yes.
of course, yes. Yeah.
No, that's really good because when I start doing my taxes with you and Mohammed, I didn't know anything. Like, I thought I knew, but then I was like, oh, I should start prepare myself. I thought I could have filed every year, but then Mohammed explained to me that every 3 months will be better. And it's easier, right? If you file every 3 months, because 1 year there's much paperwork, so much details that I don't have time for that.
And these are things that a lot of people don't explain to you. When you have like an accountant or someone that's doing your taxes, they don't explain these things to you. They only want, okay, let's do your tax quickly, I get paid. And you're like, there's so many things that you don't know, and you need that guidance. You need that, so you know what you're doing.
And something that happens to me, I think it was like 2 years ago, I used to have my own HST number, personal. But then I opened a corporation for my business. And my previous accountant, she never told me to close the HST account. So I keep getting these letters every 6 months, every 3 months, I don't recall. But they were like fees, like $4,000, $6,000. I'm like, why? I haven't made any money personal HST. Why have to pay this much? So then I get back to Mohammed and says, oh, you have to close that down. I didn't know that. So I left my HST open, and he ended up helping me fixing everything. But that was shocking. Like, people should know, if you're not using your HST, just close it. If you're not using your corporation, close it.
Close it.
Because CRA will assume that you're making money and they'll
Yeah.
charge you. Yeah.
And you bring up a great example, very common, but another common thing that people think is, okay, so maybe they make revenue the first 3 months, then they make revenue on the third quarter, but the second quarter, nothing happened, right? So for payroll deductions, for example, right? I don't know. I don't think you're doing payroll with us, but for certain payroll deductions, you report monthly what you pay your employee,
Okay.
yourself, whatever. You report that, and then what people make the mistake sometimes is that they just, if they didn't make any payroll for that month, then they don't report anything, and they just leave it blank.
Yeah.
And they move on. That's not a thing. You have to also report
if you don't make any.
nil remittance. Same
Wow.
with HST, GST, report
Okay.
nil remittance, which means I made
Yeah.
zero. I'm declaring that I made zero. I'm not paying. I didn't pay myself zero. I didn't pay myself anything, so it's zero, right? So people sometimes just kind of, okay, well, I didn't do anything, so I'll pay it and declare it next month, right? And they forget to do nil remittance too, which is very important.
Those are things that we need to know about.
Yeah.
Yes, and people need to know. A lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of details that seem small, but they make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it's important. I know we talked a lot about this in the beginning, I think, like the benefits, but can we go more in deep of the benefits that are for when you file your taxes,
Yeah.
for filing taxes? Because a lot of people they think everything is bad, right? When you're
Of
filing
course,
it, they're
yeah.
scared. They're thinking, oh, and I'm going to have to pay, especially self-employed.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, no, it's tax season. I panic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe talk about a little bit more in deep about the benefits of filing.
Yeah, so again, we go back to the beginning. One of the important things is all the benefits that the government has available that you can only get when you file your taxes, right? So anybody that's not filing is missing out. I talked about the child tax benefit, but there's other ones. We have the Ontario Trillium benefit. Right now we have the carbon tax rebate. We have the GST. We have all of these benefits that are being paid out that unless you filed your taxes, you're not going to get a portion of it, right? You also receive a refund, right, for the people that are making more of a middle class income. There's the refund aspect of it because we're overpaying in our payrolls, and so we're missing out on refunds if we're not filing our taxes, right? And then I think lastly and very important too is just the financial aspect of filing your taxes, because it serves as a way to plan financially for your household. You see your household income, so you can also track your income. Okay, how much did I make in this year, and how has it been? Is it matching the inflation rate? Are we also moving up? Have we, come a further way than where we started? You can also check your expenses. For example, David, somebody like yourself who's self-employed, you're reporting expenses too. And so what you have when you've reported your taxes or filed your taxes, you can check back to see, I know we do this sometimes, we'll ask clients, hey, you're paying less rent. Why is that? Or you're paying more rent, know, what's going on? So it's a good way also to track your finances in your company for yourself, and also for those making contributions to our RSP. It's a good way to see what you have contributed over the years. And
All right, perfect.
Yeah. It keeps you organized. Sometimes
Exactly.
it gives you pressure to organize yourself and to keep, track of what you're spending and gas and receipts and what you're spending eating out. Sometimes people don't do that if you're not obligated to do it, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a way to keep organized. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jessie, so much for being here with us. Thank you for your time, for sharing all your knowledge with us, with everyone. And this has been another episode of Financial GPS. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, and this is only the first part of your knowledge. Next time I hope to see you again with more questions. Maybe we can invite Mohammed to come by, and we're going to share all the knowledge that you guys have. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.